Ay, 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 ay. At the height of so many dramatic things unfolding on the Kenyan political scene, most Kenyans completely missed the very historic, landmark, highly symbolic event that unfolded in Bondo, Siaya, at the ancestral home of one of the founding fathers of the nation, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and of course now the home of his son, Raila Amolo Odinga. Now, I get it. The main reason why many missed the significance of the event in Bondo on 10th October 2020, Saturday, was a single line in its announcement, where it said the elders were going to endorse Raila Odinga for the presidency in 2022. That threw everybody off balance, and everybody focused on that. Raila's supporters were skeptical. This guy is serious? And of course, those who do not support Raila Odinga just rubbished the event. Period. In my view, the endorsement of Raila Odinga by the House of Mumbi elders was the least significant item in this very symbolic gathering in Bondo, in the heart of Nyanza. It is like receiving an entourage from my in-laws who are coming to pay dowry. And the man who is marrying your daughter is wearing a bright red three-piece suit in the hot sun. And the red suit dominates everything until everybody forgets the significance, the real significance of the function. So let us put aside these presidency manenos until the tail end of our show today. Kindly pretend that you're colorblind for a few minutes. And let's forget the bright red three-piece suit. Now, it is impossible to even begin to understand Kenyan politics without knowing who the Luo community are in Kenyan politics and who the Kikuyu community are in Kenyan politics. And I put it to you that even though you think you understand, you don't. Because to many of us, history is boring. We naively don't realize that some boring things, or things which look boring, that some semi-naked ancestors of ours did in the bush in 1888 or 1887, should be of great interest to you, must be of great interest to you, because it still affects you today. You yourself are a product of boring history. A handsome tall guy met a beautiful young lass many years ago, and at first they hated each other, or they pretended to. But a critical decision they made, one called African Night, resulted in your conception, and here you are. Without that boring history, you would never have existed. And there's more. If you look carefully and more deeply into the circumstances surrounding your conception, you may just discover that there's some decisions that were made, things that were done, that still affect you today. And yet you are not there. Boring history. Anyway, for anybody to fully understand the political role of these two leading communities in Kenya, we need to look at two historical events. One took place in March 1957, and the other took place on May 1960. Let's start with 1957. That was when the very first elections to send the very first Africans to parliament were held. Before then, the only people in parliament were Mzungus, and a handful of Indians, Asians. And a handful of African candidates were battling it out for 8 brand new African constituencies spread out countrywide. And the battle for Nairobi constituency was most fascinating. Facing it off were the founders of two brand new African political parties, Tom Mboya and his party, People's Convention Party, PCP, and a brilliant lawyer, indeed the first African to qualify as a lawyer, Argwings-Kodhek, running under the banner of the party he had formed, Nairobi District African Congress. Both these two were formidable candidates. Argwings-Kodhek was very popular in Nairobi, mainly because of his work defending Mau Mau suspects. And many times he got his clients released on legal technicalities. The judiciary in Kenya at the time was run by Mzungus. Many of them not very bright. I mean, if you're a top legal mind in Britain, Kenya is the last place you'd want to practice. And so, the judiciary in Kenya at the time didn't know what hit them with this brilliant, super brilliant, black, African, Kenyan lawyer. In those days, madharau ya Afrika ilikuwa nyingi. I don't think much has changed to date. And so I'm imagining these Mzungus cowering somewhere in their houses in Karen, Nairobi, and having a discussion as follows. Talking Kizungu mingi through their super long noses. This is the first African lawyer, the first Kenyan African lawyer to qualify as a lawyer. And is this brilliant? And is the first one. There's no other African lawyer. Now in 10, 20 years, when other African lawyers qualify, we're going to be history, mate. Very prophetic words. Anyway, I want you to know that if you're an African and you're listening to this, you're super brilliant. It's only that you have not yet discovered it. And the propaganda against Africans has really worked. If you still think Africans are stupid, and you have never taken into consideration their circumstances and their environment, just do a simple experiment. Put your allegedly brilliant Mzungu in the shoes of an African for 1 week. Just 1 week. They won't survive. Yet us Africans have survived for centuries. And we can still smile and laugh. The other candidate in those elections needs no introduction. Tom Mboya, who although he did not go to Cardiff University like Argwings-Kodhek, and neither did he become a member of the bar at prestigious Lincoln's Inn, London, United Kingdom, like Argwings-Kodhek did. In fact, all Mboya had was a brief high school education. But my, oh my, he was a brilliant politician, nicknamed Sungura Mjanja, orator par excellence. In fact, some of his catchphrases are still being used by Kenyan politicians over 40 years later. Tunataka uhuru sasa, na kama sio sasa, tunataka uhuru sasa hivi. That should sound familiar, modified for our purposes in this day and age. But the originator, Tom Mboya. My late political lecturer once drove hundreds of kilometers to listen to Tom Mboya giving a speech. That may not be a big deal to you, but for a mere police officer with a small salary, kuchoma hiyo mafuta yote ya petroli ya gari, it's a very big deal. Anyway, Tom Mboya won those elections by a razor-thin margin of only 395 votes. Both these two candidates were Luos, and both of them relied heavily on the Kikuyu vote. And surprise, surprise, there was a Kikuyu candidate on the ballot, Munyo Wayaki, from a very prominent Kikuyu family, very well known. Some analysts say, and I tend to agree with them, that the only reason Mboya won by such a slim margin was because most of Argwings-Kodhek's staunch supporters were not allowed to vote. Think about it. You're a Mau Mau suspect. Argwings-Kodhek got you off on a technicality. But the Mzungus are sure you're a radical. The intelligence is telling them so. Do you think in your wildest daydream that the Mzungu government will issue you with a voter's card? Apana. Impossible. Now that was the beginning of a very fierce political rivalry between Tom Mboya and Argwings-Kodhek. Now let's move to 1960. May, the formation of KANU. And I'm sure you don't know this. The man behind the formation of KANU was not from the house of Mumbi. He was in fact, wait for this one, a Luo. Prior to the formation of KANU, in Limuru, in May 1960, a very interesting meeting took place at a house in Riruta Satellite, Nairobi. The house belonged to a man called Julius Gikonyo Kiano. But the meeting had been called by Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and he had invited all elected African leaders except one, Tom Mboya, but Argwings-Kodhek was there. There was fear at the time that the rivalry between Tom Mboya and Argwings-Kodhek and their respective supporters would turn violent and bloody and scuttle the efforts for independence. And Jaramogi used that as an excuse. At least that was one of his main excuses for forming a brand new political party to include all Africans, starting with all African elected leaders except Mboya. Jaramogi feared Mboya. He had outsmarted him too many times. And this was his game shot of dealing with Mboya. Mboya, of course, get crashed the Limuru meeting. Hey, who invited you, Bwana? I can imagine people telling him, yeah, but at the end of the day, he not only ended up as a member of KANU, the brand new political party that was formed that day, but he also ended up being elected as its Secretary General. That is why he used to be called Sungura Mjanja. And the rest is history. But take note of the following. Mboya was a Luo. Argwings-Kodhek was a Luo. Jaramogi was a Luo. My guess is that if they'd been able to see into the future, they would have quickly united. But then the problem would have come where they would have had to choose one candidate to be their flag bearer. That would have been an impossible task. That is why it's very easy to predict that when Raila Odinga exits politics, we're going to have a very big problem amongst the Luo community. Yeah, the same problem of the 50s and 60s. ODM without Raila is going to be a very long shot. Yeah, and I'm not being personal. It's just the way the politics are. My very sincere apologies for the long history lecture. But my point is, history tells us that contrary to what Kenyans think, the House of Mumbi can very easily support a candidate from another tribe. They've done it in the past, especially where there's no other candidate from the House of Mumbi. They're not represented, so they have to vote in somebody from another community. The truth is, most members of the House of Mumbi, and this is going to be controversial, find their own candidates mostly very boring. And these candidates of theirs realize this. And so what have they done? To win support and popularity, they've given the community the impression that they're under siege from the main political opponent of their candidate. Jomo Kenyatta did it with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Kibaki did it with Raila. It's a very effective political play. Joe Biden in the United States is currently doing it against Donald Trump. I've said it many times on this channel. Elections the world over are won by drumming up emotions. By the way, did you hear that hilarious one? In 2017, when we were told that if Raila Odinga was elected president, all members of the House of Mumbi would be forced to wear kaptulas. Yani you have a nice suit on, But because you're a member of the House of Mumbi, you have to go to work in shorts, suit plus shorts. And many voters believed it and did exactly what those who spread that ridiculous tale wanted them to do. They woke up early and ran to cast their vote as if their very life depended on it. Wake up, Kenyans. In 2022, let's not care about tribes. If the person who will save Kenya is a Kikuyu, let's vote for him or her. If they happen to be Luo, so what? Vote for them. By the way, for 2022 has been my favorite candidate for years. And if you go to the Kumekucha blog, you can confirm. A man who has proved that he cannot be bribed or moved by money. You know, it is one thing telling people, I will do. But that is not enough. We need evidence. We need a track record. John Githongo, right inside State House in the Kibaki administration, he was told, you can be rich beyond your wildest daydreams. You can pay off the debts of your dad. Now, there are not many Kenyans who have resisted that temptation. John Githongo started talking about corruption when a vast majority of Kenyans thought that it's not such a big deal. They believed corruption was a non-issue. Yeah, that's when this man started fighting for a better Kenya against corruption. Now, unfortunately, he is a Kikuyu. But so what? Tribe will not help us, but an effective person will. Period. So, with that kind of background, let's go back to Bondo. It is significant that this function was held at the ancestral home of the man who started it all, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. With all due respect to this very great son of Kenya, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, I think you can now clearly see that we are suffering today mainly because of some political mistakes, tactical mistakes that he made. Yeah, some of them emotionally. And the lesson, just to spell it out, the lesson is this. Don't get so involved, engrossed in fighting personal political battles because other people can come in and take advantage. Because while you're busy with your domestic squabbles, yeah, somebody can come in and take that which you're fighting over and run away with it, and you'll never see it again. We can't undo the past, but we can go back to where it all started. Yeah, and from there, we emerge with a fresh, brand new start. And that start really has to be brand new. And endorsing the son of the man who started it all as your Mount Kenya presidential candidate is a very good start. It's excellent. It is the most genuine way of apologizing and burying the past. And it must be fully appreciated in that way. But that does not mean that that individual has to be president in 2022. No! There is no way we'll be able to build a brand new Kenya on that old foundation, that old faulty foundation. The only way out is a fresh start, which means all those leaders from the past going into retirement, going home, and we get a brand new crop of new politicians who will build from a brand new, different foundation, where tribe will not be an issue. A fresh start means will not disqualify you because of your tribe. Yes, you're Kikuyu. We have had too many Kikuyu presidents. But so what? If you're the best person for the job, and I mean the best person for the job, so be it. Your tribe is irrelevant. Folks, that is what a fresh start means. And that is the only thing that can save Kenya. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.